Hi, I'm Benjamin Lawson, and this is Hoosier Homies. We're a podcast that cover controversial issues and complex topics. This season, we'll be examining Trump's tariffs, AI in the workforce, the blockchain, and several other important topics. I'm looking forward to you getting in the conversation with us. In this episode of Hoosier Homies, I sat down with Erika Knierim, an attorney with Founders Law who specializes in AI, blockchain, and quantum computing. We discuss the advances in technology, specifically AI, has had on our world. I hope you enjoy this episode of Who's Your Homies. All right, this is Benjamin Lawson here with Erika Knierim, a founding attorney or a starting attorney at Founders Law. Erika, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
Hmm. So first off, can you please introduce yourself, your background in law and community organizing?
Of course. Yes, I'm Erika Knierim, and I'm based in Chicago. I'm an attorney. I graduated here in Chicago from Loyola in 2009. And I went right into what I thought would be the job I had for the rest of my life, which was being a public defender.
Yeah.
I got very lucky. There was a hiring freeze that had just been lifted when I graduated in '09. And there were, I guess, 500 applicants for about 19 positions, and I ended up getting one. And I was thrilled because I had gone to law school. I had participated in what's called the Corboy Fellowship, which was like a trial advocacy fellowship. And this was what I wanted to do. And so I kind of hit the ground running and got, my first assignment, which was child abuse and neglect, is what they called it, and worked representing parents here in Chicago who had abused and neglected their kids. And I represented them in a process to try to get their kids back. And yeah, so that's where my legal career began. And it has taken a journey since then, because that is not what I do now. And but yeah, so I did that for just shy of 10 years, and several hundred trials later, I was kind of burnt out, and, I really just I didn't know what to do because it was just the thing that I had always wanted to do. So, I ended up taking my kind of next leap, and we'll kinda get into all of that, but, um fast forward a few years, and I ended up and this, I guess, will be the crux of our conversation because now I'm a startup attorney at Founders Law, where I work
Mhm.
with early stage startup companies in emerging technology, so blockchain, AI, and quantum computing, and I help them navigate the regulatory challenges and, legal kind of roadmap to get their companies up and running,
Yeah.
and I help them kind of form the company, everything through about Series C.
Okay. Well, I'm really excited to talk to you about just the technology aspect, but also the structure of how these corporations are organized, because it's not something that your normal layman gets to discuss every day. And I do kind of feel like because corporations are so embedded into our current society, we should probably know how they work, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I think it's probably one of the least understood areas, and I think in a moment where, um, we have rising unemployment,
Hmm.
technology, AI specifically, is replacing a lot of the knowledge workforce. Those people are probably going to turn to entrepreneurship, and they should. I think entrepreneurship is part of the bedrock of who we are, as a society here in America, but that also means they need to understand what that thing is,
Yeah.
because not everybody is an entrepreneur. That is what I've realized. There's people who want to be entrepreneurs. There's a personality style that it takes. I mean, you have to be kind of uh, you know, like rock solid as a human being. Like you have to know yourself. You have to just be aware of like what your risk tolerance is. You have to be able to weather severe ups and downs and do so with a positive sort of outlook where you can wake up every single morning and just keep moving forward. And so understanding the legal underpinnings of all of that, understanding the corporate infrastructure helps a founder kind of navigate those things and understand where the risks can be really taken. And in places like emerging technology, that becomes a real big question.
Yeah, and it sounds like this is something that'll really support those entrepreneurs, having that strong foundation, having that bedrock of understanding of what even a business looks like, be it small, like a 5, 10 person business, heck, be a one-person business. I'm a one-person business right now. Um,
Exactly.
you know, um, to again, you have major corporations employing hundreds of thousands of people, right? So, each have their own structures, but I'm sure that there are similarities between the 2, and that run the gamut, obviously. So
Well, I mean, I want to talk about the sign behind you. Does that say in this house we believe laws are real?
we do believe laws are real in this house.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I know that it's few and far between in the state of Indiana. We don't really believe in laws in Indiana, or well, most of the people in my state don't believe in laws. But, you know.
I love that take. Um, in Chicago, we believe the law is real, but from time to time, it's negotiable.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think that that's something we've been seeing, well, I mean, I could get conspiratorial and say since 1779 or 1789, but, we don't need to go back that far.
Well,
Uh,
no, I mean, I think this is a really great place to start because, um, I spend a lot of time intellectually thinking about what the law is as a social system. And I think not enough people really stop and think about it as an entity, as a social construction. And when you're building a business, especially in emerging technology, what you're really saying is, I'm going to build where there are no roads, right? To make that back to the future reference. I really always
nice.
am thinking about that, right? Like where we're going, there are no roads because that is what it is to build in AI, in blockchain, in quantum. Like these are, let's take quantum computing, for example. I've done a number of events in this space. I have some startup companies that I work with in quantum. And when I talk to these quantum physicists and we get down to it and I say, do you actually understand how quantum computing works? Almost all of them get to the point where they're like, look, no, but we know it works, but it's kind of
Okay.
like magic. And so
Interesting.
it's a word that comes up often in quantum computing, like it's magic. And so how do you build a company where you kind of don't know how that thing works? You
Yeah.
just know that it does. And you're going out and you're asking for hundreds of millions of dollars. And then those people give you hundreds of millions of dollars to build this thing, and it does work. But then how do you go to the legislature? How do you go to the lawmakers and say, okay, you need to now set a regulatory ecosystem for what I'm building, and I don't
Mhm.
even know how it works, right?
Yeah.
And so the law becomes an instrument of sometimes um, uh, holding innovation back and in some ways empowering innovation. And I think the law as a structure, right? Some people just are like, oh, laws are stupid. We don't need them. Regulation is bad, right? And I think that's what that sign is really referring to is this idea that like regulation is bad. It's not. I think in time memoriam, we have always, as human beings, created social structures amongst us. We've created networks and fabrics where we come together as a society and we say, look, you can't kill me, right? I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
And then, like, you can't take my stuff. We can all agree on that.
I'm
You
pretty sure,
can't hurt
yeah,
me.
Mill
Right?
and
And so
Locke had that down, right?
exactly. And so I think we're coming to a moment, where we're starting to renegotiate some of those long held beliefs about who we are as a society, and that becomes really painful. So
Yeah.
I think that's the moment we're going through, and I think not enough people talk about it as a flexible object, as a dynamic system, not static.
Right, yeah. No, and I really like your take on that. That's brilliant. Um, now I kinda feel like I need to go back a little bit because we did kinda jump a
Jump
little
right
bit
in.
in, yeah, which is fine. I
I
love
love it.
it. But as somebody who is like, effectively ignorant when it comes to current tech when it comes to AI, blockchain, quantum frameworks, this is essentially like you're speaking ancient Greek to me. And I would love for you to help me understand A, what each of these things are, and B, the difference is, if any of them. Because I'm sure if I have this question, a lot of other
A
people
lot of
would.
people.
Yeah. I mean, not to
So,
say, but yeah, I know that I'm not the only one asking this question.
oh, you're not. You're absolutely not. As you can see from my background, I am a voracious reader. And I read a book. See, I want to say it was in 2022, actually. Um, I'd already been working in blockchain for a few years at that point, and I came across a book called Analysis and Design of Next Generation Software Architectures, and from 5G to quantum computing. And this book really changed my mind about what I was actually doing in the space. Because what it talked about was the fact that when computers were first built, we had a couple of different phases of software architecture. I mean, we're old enough to remember, when we were kids
Yep.
working on a computer that was a green screen and we had to do MS DOS, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
.exe to get the program up and running, and you kind of were had to be a coder, but when we were kids, that was pretty easy to pick up.
Yep.
Then we come into, like, the Microsoft era, Microsoft Windows, and, that was like a paradigm. Um, Now we're entering a completely new software architecture sort of era. And the first step of that was 5G, right? Bringing on as much network connectivity as possible to as many people as possible. And then we moved to the Internet of Things. Bring as many objects into network connectivity as possible. Why do you need a microwave that is smart? Well, why not? A smart television, a smart, refrigerator. I do not get. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm a pretty boring shopper, but I don't need to have, like, a real-time view of the inside of my fridge.
Yeah, and I don't
Or
need another slideshow of my family vacation playing while I reheat my pot roast or something.
exactly. But all of that network connectivity started to generate data. Data now is the most valuable commodity on the planet. So between 5G and Internet of Things, the next step of that process was blockchain.
Okay.
Connecting those things, creating that shared network of objects that we could now start to move value around these objects and connectivity. And I'm oversimplifying. But the next step after that is AI, where you actually now have all this data, it's connected, it's transparent, it has sort of location based tagging. That's the real world asset tokenization or cryptocurrency aspect, bringing that value into the transparent market so you can see who's spending on what. And AI can process all of that. We can now start to derive insights from the data. And quantum is that last step in this the next generation software architecture, where you can actually take all of the data in the world, which would normally take a classical computer, let's say 100,000 years to calculate one thing. A quantum computer can calculate that in 10 seconds. And so this is the arc. And I think that's the best way of approaching this, is saying the goal here is we have all this data. Now we have to figure out what to do with it. And the
Mhm.
the people who are going to succeed in that era are those who can ask the big questions now that we're starting to have the processing power to be able to answer those big questions. Calculations that we as human beings just can't wrap our brains around. That's the end game here in quantum computing, is really taking all that we know about the universe. James Webb's telescope is giving us unprecedented amounts of data about the universe, which
Mhm.
is making us completely rethink our understanding from a physics perspective of how how this universe came to be, who we are, our place in it, what is consciousness, right? We're entering all of these moments where we're completely going back to earth, to our humans biggest questions. Why are we here? And what made us, and what is consciousness? And literally, that's the endpoint.
I mean, but and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, AI is not like it's an artificial intelligence. It's not a. Is it a consciousness or
No,
okay?
no, and I think that's the big thing, is that a lot of people are starting to you start to hear these stories that people have been spending so much time with ChatGPT that they swear that it's sentient. No, AI is not sentient. It is a large language model, and there's a lot of people talking about this right now, that at the end of the day, a large language model is just a compute it's a computer. It processes based on inputs
Yeah.
and learns patterns. That's it, right? And so I think when we talk about consciousness, I think people believe that artificial general intelligence is going to give rise to consciousness again. We don't know what the answer to that question is because we don't fully understand consciousness. And when I say that all of this ends with consciousness, quantum computers are able to calculate these massive calculations. And so, what we believe will happen is that we will now start to be able to input data that would allow us to understand, things about how our brain works, how our body chemistry works, how neural networks within our brains work, which I mean, there's hundreds of millions of neural networks within our brains that no computer has been able to fully process or understand.
Mhm.
And when you can do that, when you can really kind of get to that point where you could start to process all that information, the belief is maybe we'll start to understand why it is that we as human beings have belief, we have hope, we have love, we have all those things that happen within our jelly body,
Mhm.
right? That we
Yeah.
all know and share and feel, but we don't fully understand why. And that's going back to quantum computer, that's the magic. That's the feeling
Huh.
of like we don't fully understand why this thing works, but it does.
Huh. Okay, this is a follow-up question that I did not write down. So if we strike it, we strike it, okay?
Let's do it.
But like to me that almost sounds, and this is going to sound more like a statement than a question, but to me that almost sounds like our soul. For those of us who believe like, and I don't know if I do or not. I'm in that weird sort of spot in my journey of like I know there's something that makes me me, but I don't know what it is. And it almost sounds like that, but, like, please tell me if I'm being just absolutely 100% wrong.
No, you're not. I mean, honestly, there's so I'm gonna take a little bit of a detour,
Yeah,
which I
yeah.
often do. Um, I have gone a little bit viral on YouTube without my knowledge. I went to the University of Illinois for my undergrad, and there was this guy by the name of Pastor Dan who would come to the campus and he would like yell at people. He would like, you're going to hell, that sort of thing. And one day I was walking from class to class and I was feeling spicy. And I decided to stop and argue with him. Well, unbeknownst to me, this was 2003, I want to say. He had camera, and that camera was set up,
Oh,
and he took footage of this conversation. And I had spent most of my childhood going to church every Saturday. My mom would host Bible studies on Friday nights at the house. And so I was well versed in the Bible. And we got into this theological debate on campus, and this large group formed, and we're like going at it. And I made some sort of statement because we were talking about faith, and I was really struggling at the time. And I said, I want 100% proof. And he went down this got you argument, right? Because that was the whole idea, was that these pastors come and they catch you in a gotcha moment. But this was before YouTube. So fast forward to about 2 years ago, a friend of mine sends me this clip on YouTube, and the caption is something like "Pastor roasts atheist." And it was me from
whoa,
2002.
whoa.
And this video, he had uploaded it, and it is now all over YouTube. There's, like, millions of views of this thing, and all of it apparently, people are praying for me. All because I went through the comments, I'm like, "What?" And these people are like, "She just needs to find God," and so I say all of this because, um,
Huh,
for many years, I kind of thought of myself as an atheist and did not believe that organized religion just really kinda struck me the wrong way.
yeah.
So now I come back later to my life, to quantum computing and quantum physics, which I briefly studied. I would do these Saturday morning physics classes at Fermilab in high school, and so I was always interested in it, but I come back to it, and now I'm actually rethinking my views on God because of exactly what you're talking about, that, like, th that thing, we call it consciousness, we could call it the soul, we could call it, religion, the feeling that there's an afterlife. When you study physics, there's really an understanding that the second law of thermodynamics say that energy can be neither created nor destroyed. That means that when we die, everything that was our fleshy body starts
Mm.
to decay. And, during that decay process, we're actually feeding bacteria and, there's creation and life in that decomposition. And you as a thing, you never die. You just get turned into something else. What is that if not eternal life? We are made of star stuff. One of my favorite podcasts is, Neil deGrasse Tyson's Star Talk, and he
Yeah.
always that's his thing. He's like, "We are made of star stuff." So we are eternal within our own beings, and there's an energy that we all possess. That energy doesn't disappear. It gets converted after we die. And so I think, you know, um, there's a lot of those questions, and I really enjoy spending time with quantum physicists because ultimately, they're asking that question, but they don't wanna fly too close to the sun because they said, many physicists have actually lost their minds thinking too much about how you answer that question of what exactly that thing is, that consciousness, that soul, and they come to the same conclusion that Einstein did. God doesn't play dice with the universe, and they just end it there, and they say, let's just focus on the numbers and what comes of it, and, like, we'll let the philosophers have that conversation.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I mean, that's one of those things where, I mean, I don't think that we'll ever be able to really nail it down now that I'm on the other side of 30, and closer to 40. Um, but I mean, yeah, no, I mean, I've basically told my wife, like, when I die, b cremate me and put my ashes in our garden, you know?
Well, you know that God, we're taking a morbid turn, but do you know that you can actually have your body decomposed into compost?
Wha Okay, that's new.
And what your family will receive is like mulch.
Huh, I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah, seriously,
I mean, I don't
I
know if I
read
want
it.
my family handling I don't know how they're gonna be about that, and
Well,
hopefully that's not gonna
they
be for a
can
long time.
they can put it no, it's so it takes, like, 6 months, and then, like, you can have, like, a rose bush planted.
I'm into
Think
that.
about it. I mean, right? Like, this is a great extension of our conversation because then
Yeah.
you become a thriving, beautiful, blooming plant.
I already am that, Erica.
Well,
We're
of course you are.
No, that's wild. I didn't know that. No, no, no. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that more. Well, so, hey, getting back to law and corporations and corporate government, um, I do wanna talk a little bit about your experience with digital technology in the law and then, um, talking about how corporations are formed using said legal structures, um, and, like, how they govern themselves. So, like, at Founders Law I don't know if you can talk about at Founders Law or not, but
Yeah.
your organizing structure, your organizing body, is it similar to a constitution? Like, do you have bylaws? Um
Yeah. So there's 2 different types of companies we usually work with,
Okay.
limited liability companies and incorporations or corporations. And so an LLC, as it's called, is like either a single person who wants to just set up a legal entity. And that is in the form of, and I'll probably put this legal disclaimer, this is not legal advice. It's just kind of, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the firm, all that good stuff.
Good to
Um,
know. We'll
but
keep that in.
exactly. So, and sometimes when you as an individual want to create some liability protection, you're operating maybe a small shop on the corner and you don't, comes in, they slip, they fall. If you don't have that extra layer of protection, that person could sue you personally and you could
Mhm.
lose everything. So creating an entity, a legal entity that operates as a business separate from you yourself could be really important. And oftentimes that's a single member LLC. You could also create a partnership in an LLC. So let's say you and I want to start a business. We want to sell candles on the corner. And you want 50% of the profits. I'll take the other 50, or let's say you want 60 and I want 40. We can structure a partnership that's pretty simple through an LLC. We can just be like 60-40 done. And we create an operating agreement. You file your papers to create the company with, the state of Illinois. You file your fees and all that good stuff. It's actually pretty simple to do that. And that governs the way that you and I do business. We can go get a bank account on behalf of the business.
Okay.
A lot of people don't, they'll file the LLC, but they won't do the operating agreement. And I think that is something that, we can talk about today because it's one of the areas that causes the most problems. It's,
Yeah.
uh, it's because I think people think in their, sort of relationships, in their interpersonal relationships, "Oh, we've talked about it." So they never actually sit down and, like, hash out the details.
Yeah.
So that ends up causing problems because later on, I come back to you and say, "Wait a minute, I thought you were working on Friday." And you say, "Well, no, 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 I make the candles. You're the one who operates the front desk." And I'm like, "That's what we talked about."
Yeah.
Right? So operating agreements, founders agreements, things like that, that actually sit down and hammer out what is the thing that we are building, right? So I think that's one of the areas that is really, really interesting. So that's an LLC. The other option is a C corp, so
Okay.
like a corporation. And corporations, I think that's where I spend most of my time. So two founders, they want to make an app of some kind. And they come to me and we say, okay, an LLC probably is not the best vehicle for that.
Okay.
A C corp is the vehicle, we call them vehicles, right? The vehicle by which you can accept most simply external investment. LLCs are just really, really bad at it, because
Okay.
they don't have equity. They have what's called units, membership units.
Hmm.
And so it's a common misconception that, like, "Oh, I can set up an LLC and I can take investors." You can, but it's sticky. It's really, really sticky and ends up causing a bunch of problems down the road. Just set your
Interesting.
company up as a corporation. So
Okay.
you have a corporation on that side, and you can take external investment, you can issue equity, you can raise money through things called priced rounds, and eventually you can do things like go public or, go through a merger and acquisition, sell your company or merge with another company. So those are the cores.
Wow. That's actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Thank
A
you.
lot of people are surprised. It's actually kind of simple,
Well,
and it's
oh, go
super
ahead.
formulaic.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm just thinking about this myself, like, and I'm not looking for legal advice. We can talk about that off camera, but and all that. But these are questions that I'm having starting this project of like, do I incorporate somehow? Do I? What do I do? But anyway, we'll move on from that. Um,
This is great. Business to
yeah,
business.
no, this is awesome. I love it. And we've already kind of talked the idea of regulation when it comes to why attorneys need to be involved in these tech frameworks and in these corporate frameworks. One of the things that you talk about I don't remember if it was your CV or if it was on your LinkedIn, and I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm a stalker, but I like to do my research. Um,
Yeah, that's amazing.
um, you talk about the word tokenization and real world
Mhm.
asset tokenization. Can you explain that to just a layperson and how this topic intersects with your clients that you work with?
Sure. This is a good question because we have things like corporations, which are actually quite old structures. I think they go back about 100 years. And the reason, just as a side note, that Delaware tends to be the place where most corporations set up is that they were one of the first states to really embrace this as a concept. So we have tons and tons of law that we can look at. So when you have an investor coming in and they look at things and they say, what's going to happen in the incident or in the event that X and Y and Z happens? Well, Delaware typically has case law so that you can go back and be like, oh, this is well established precedent. This is what's going to happen. So it gives you a lot of ability to anticipate what the roadmap looks like. But from time to time, there are structures within the legal system that are just outdated. And
Mhm.
tokenization is, in my opinion, one of the areas of modernization that is it's time. And it looks like this. When you buy a house, your house has a deed,
Hmm.
and there's a recorder of deeds for each city or county that you live in. And if you want to see who has owned that house, like my apartment here in Chicago was built in 1933. It's a condo. There's a number of people who have owned this condo. And if I want to look at who owned that condo, I can go down and actually look at the original deeds. They're paper documents. It's time that we digitize that process. Tokenization is a digital deed. It's just a digital recording of a real world thing. That could be a car, it could be a condo, it could be my cell phone, it could be my computer. And when you think about what a deed does, this is the best way of intellectually understanding it. People overcomplicate it because it's such a fascinating digital innovation that they get focused on that. Look, at the end of the day, it's about a digital deed. And the best way that I can look at this and show the way that it is innovative is looking at the art world. So the art world is a very fractured world, and it operates in silos and in dark pools, right? Where there are very
Absolutely
rarely,
agree with that.
right, bills of sale. There usually are changes hands with cash, or has predominantly for many years changed with cash. There's no understanding, right? So sometimes you'll get paintings, we hear about it often, you know, where these paintings have just been discovered in an attic, right?
Yep.
And they've been sitting there for 400 years, or if I'm exaggerating, but like, for 100 years, and we don't know if they're real. And then you have all these art experts coming and they're like studying it, and oh, it's a fake, or oh, this is a Michelangelo, right? Like that.
Oh,
I think the
it's a legit
Salvador Mundi,
Magritte.
right? Exactly. And now it goes to auction and sells for hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So digital tokenization for the art world has been a real interesting concept because what it does, for example, MoMA in New York, I believe, has blockchained their entire art collection, and each piece of artwork within the MoMA collection now has a digital asset associated with it. But it's not for value. It's not for the crypto of it all. It's for the provenance. It's for the information attached to that artwork, so that in the future, when someone discovers a painting in an attic somewhere and they need to actually study the timeline, the catalog raisonné of that artist to see where within that catalog would this work fit. Was there a hole in, or reference to a piece of artwork in this timeline? They can now go into a digital database and actually search and get information of provenance from institutions, from private collections, from
Wow.
auction houses, from galleries, and all of this gets assembled in a transparent blockchain that you can get access to. When that comes to fruition, imagine how much information a person can use to actually make a real world determination of provenance for a piece of artwork. It's insane. Like, it all
Yeah.
of a sudden transforms. Then this collection becomes a living, dynamic, breathing sort of system that you can add to, you can review. We can go back and look at things like, I have a dear friend who's a curator, and, curators are the storytellers of the art
Oh
world.
yeah. Oh yeah.
They create and tell the stories of those artists and contextualize them and write about them. And they create this rich database. But that database also reflects the time that that curator lived and all of the social systems, right? And all of that now can be attached and networked with one another to better understand what that collection looks like.
Well, and just from a historical point of view, the ability to create such a complete and vivid historiography of not only a particular artist's work, but also the people who collected and studied that artist.
Yeah.
I mean, there are I'm in the middle of reading Ron Chernow's new biography on Mark Twain, just because, Twain himself was such a prolific writer in the 19th century, particularly against, imperialism. He was very anti-slavery. Um, he was one of the 19th century progressives. Um, and yet, like, I'm more interested in how Chernow is writing about Twain, like his tone, because I've read Hamilton and he gushes over Hamilton for the most part, um, except when he doesn't. But it's, I mean, and that's the whole like, yeah, he was arrogant and he was a philanderer, all that stuff. I'm not getting any of that from Twain, but then again, I'm also only a couple hundred pages in. So,
That becomes super important, right?
yeah.
Like, we revisit these moments in history and, we want to study them through all of the information possible, but
Yeah.
that information often there's a really wonderful, book, in the art world called The Ways of Seeing, and it talks about how artists changed the way that we see because every painting is through the eyes of that artist. And so there's something that happens when, there's information that comes in and then this artist now interprets or paints his world into onto a canvas. And all information is that way. Kind of going back to quantum computing, I went down a rabbit hole in the last few months on information theory.
Okay.
And when you study computers and computing, information is the thing because what you're doing when you send an email is you're sending information out into the world. And we as humans, we codify that through things like language. And language is a social system, just like trust and power are social systems. And art is a social
Mhm.
system. Money, all of these different social systems. And so information is a social system through language. But we also have body language. We also have, writing, you
Mhm.
know, and that social system has different levels to it, right? Because the words on the page, people talk when they come to the Midwest that we're never having the conversation that we're actually having because we have social niceties, right? We have our
Oh,
Midwest
yeah.
nice and things like one of my favorite memes. How do you know when it's time to end a conversation or time to leave in the Midwest?
Oh,
People
oh
go,
God, no, I do know this one.
Do you know this one?
I
You're in
do, but
Indiana?
I'm from Indiana, and it's oh God, isn't it when you get in your car and leave the driveway? I'm think I'm
No,
messing
no,
up.
no. It's when you're sitting in a house and somebody slaps their knees and goes, "Well,"
Yeah,
and like that's the international sign of like it's time to go,
yeah.
right?
I
And
mean,
so
my grandpa, he's no longer with us, but he was the kind of guy who, when he was done on the phone, he would just hang it up. He wouldn't say goodbye.
that's epic.
I mean, but
We're done now.
yeah, yeah. He was just kind of like, "I'll see you at 9," and that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I get to a place with my clients where because time is money, and I'm like, look, if you want to call me and don't even say hello, just be like, here's my question. Because if it's under 6 minutes, I typically don't charge. They call, Erica, I need the X, Y, and Z, and I say, okay, and we hang up the phone. Streamlined.
There you go.
It's amazing. So anyways, information, we transmit this information to one another. And God, where were we going? I lost my train of thought here.
So I'm sorry I interrupted you. We were talking about how language changes and language is situational. But not only that, it's also currency, it's technology, it's art, it's body language. I mean,
No, I remember.
okay,
Yes, you were talking about Hamilton.
yeah,
Yes. So when we read these texts, when we read biographies, that information, like that book, The Ways of Seeing, is transmitted through the author of that
mhm,
biography, and that means that we actually have to see that critically, right? That's this is an entire area of study over the last, several decades. This
yeah,
idea that we actually have to be critical of the things that we read because that's not necessarily truth, right?
exactly.
And we're living in a post-truth era. So I think
Yeah.
everything that we read, we have to actually be looking critically at it to ask ourselves, what do we actually think happened? As opposed to this thing is truth because I'm reading it on a page and it was published in a book.
So that's one of my favorite lessons when I was a uh, high school social studies teacher would be Who actually fired the first shot at the Battle of Lexington and Concord on the Lexington Green? And we still don't know.
Wait, for real?
Yeah, for real. We there that all the British sides say the colonists shot first. All the colonists say the British shot first. We have differing journals. We have differing letters, textbooks. I mean, uh, biological or fictional accounts. I mean, it's nuts. We don't know just because people don't want to look bad when they're talking about particularly bad stuff.
Oh,
So
of course. Isn't that history is always written by the winners, the phrase?
that is the phrase. I don't necessarily I agree with it. It is. It is always written by the winners, and I agree with it, and I don't necessarily like it. So,
Well, I wish everything in the world worked with just the things that we liked.
I know, right? Wouldn't that be lovely? Uh, well, okay. I kinda feel like we've gotten the first 3 topics. We've definitely talked about some of the art world stuff that I wanna get into more and more with your work in the symphony. Do you mind if we change subjects and talk really quickly about, your work as a public defender? Um,
Sure.
okay. Um, okay, I know that I kind of and this is just me from a filmmaking standpoint, amateur filmmaking standpoint. A lot of these procedurals that we see in TV shows like Law& and Order, Boston Legal, Better Call Saul, films, you know, run the gamut. How much of that is actually accurate? Or is a lot of this just what we see on TV and in film sort of hyped up?
A lot of it, and maybe this is a hot take, I think a lot of it's accurate.
Oh,
And honestly, life is usually stranger than fiction. I mean, I can't
mm,
even uh, tell you how many times I would go into the courtroom and be like, "Did that really just happen?" And you like leave for the day and you're like, oh my God. And I think that's why these genres continue to persist the way they have. Why Law and Order continues after years, decades that it's been
yeah.
on the air. Because we as human beings, we have a natural curiosity for the dramas that make us human. And I think there's a perception that, the only people who are in those courtrooms are people who are bad. And it's
Mhm,
not. It is
mhm.
it's everybody. It is a cross section. Now, who gets found guilty is a very different conversation, but
Yes.
who goes into those courtrooms is everybody. Everyone has a bad day at some point. And I think that's the job of a public defender is really removing that judgment and being like, "We're here to help you understand the system that you're going through
Yeah.
and the choices available to you under that system and to tell your story." And so these genres in TV and movies tend to be about the fact that everybody wants to have those conversations. We all want to understand how we tick and why people make the decisions that they do that often lead to either crime or great success. That's why we also love the Good Founder movie, right? Like we want to understand what makes, Elon Musk tick. We all want to know how Bill Gates became Bill Gates, right? It's the same concept. And that's actually why I believe that I'm doing the same job in a sense. Like my day to day does not, I mean, it looks very different. I used to be in a courtroom, right? But
Yeah.
the actual work is about dealing with people. And a lot of my day is still helping people understand the complexities of the law, the choices available to them, and helping them navigate the process, which is the job that I did as a public defender.
Which that's so interesting that you're able to make that comparison because so many people who leave one profession and pivot to another often feel like they have to learn, and in some cases they do, a whole new skill set to be able to succeed in that new field, right? But like they're totally forgetting about what they already bring with them. So the fact that you're able to
Yes.
do that, maybe that's something that should be talked about more. Is remember you have these gifts that you're given, and they can be cross deplatformed, essentially.
There's a really wonderful book, called Range that someone gave me as I was going through this career transition, and, it was fantastic because it talks about how we are programmed, again, through our social systems to believe that as a lawyer, you're trained as a lawyer, you're trained as a public defender, therefore you need to be a public defender. Like, when I told people I was leaving, I had people in the PD's office who were telling me, like, "But where will you go?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What do you mean, where will I go?" And they're like, "You're gonna what? Are you gonna be divorce attorney? Because there's only a few options available to you when you're leaving the PD's office after you've been there for, as long as I was there. The legal industry does not really let you leave. They expect you, because you have 10 years of experience, to stay a litigator." And it was one of the more surprising elements that everybody wants to thank you for your service, but no one wants to give you a job. And
Yeah.
so, because, you go in, and I get it. You go to a large law firm and you say, "Okay, I've been doing this thing for 10 years. I want to start over. I'm a lawyer, so I'll start over in a corporate capacity." And they're like, "No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, what are we going to do with you?" And so there were, leaving, I could do personal injury law. I could be a divorce attorney. I could be a private criminal defense attorney, but I wasn't interested in that because what I realized was that the part of being in a courtroom, it's so stressful. It was taking a toll on my body. I
Yeah.
really just couldn't do it anymore, and
Yeah.
especially when you're kind of in they call it like a second responder, because when I was a public defender, like on the weekends and on holidays, we had what's called holiday bond court. Think you were out last night, you got arrested. The first attorney you see the next morning were the bond court attorneys, and the judge sets your bond. I remember there were moments, I would work holiday bond court on the weekends in the summer,
Mhm.
and if it was a hot night, we had 400 prisoners and 5 public defenders to interview 400 prisoners, and some of those guys would be bleeding from, like, gunshots, and, they're in, like, shock, and you're like, "Hey, listen up.
Amen.
Like, you're about to go in front of a judge. What happened? Give me information. How old are you? Are you married?" And, like, that takes a toll on you and your psyche, and so I didn't want to stay in that. And so when I went to transition, I read this book, and it really helped me reframe that we are also going through a transition in the way we think about professions and value. And again, every part of this conversation, Benjamin, is really about this social transformation that we're going through, and it's being precipitated by AI to say, I'm not a public defender. I'm a series of skills
Mhm.
that job taught me.
Yeah.
And when I went to transition and I changed my viewpoint of who I was as a worker, and started to talk about my skills, the world became my oyster. Or is that the phrase? The world is your oyster?
No, no, that's
Yeah.
absolutely right. It's no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's so amazing that we're actually having this conversation because there are a lot of similarities that I'm kind of picking up between our professional situations in terms of we were this thing for a decade. Like, I was a social studies teacher, right? Nowhere near as stressful as being a public defender. Um, but I left the field too just because I had bad administrators, you know? That's all it really boiled down to. I couldn't handle the administrators anymore. Um, but, like, I personally, after I left and I've left teaching for about 5 years now, um, I was kind of adrift for a good 6 to 8 months, right? I didn't know what to do. I took any job I could find as a freelancer. Um, and
Oh.
now I'm doing this. I mean, it's starting. So hopefully, hopefully this is something. But like now that I've
Well, it's all something. That's what I realized too, is that, it I didn't just jump to this. I actually went through about 4 different jobs between the public defender's office and this, and
that's
all of them felt like I was adrift. I was like, "I don't understand what that direction is," and what happens is, like, so my first job after I left, a job fell into my lap. I'm not kidding. I was You mentioned my volunteer work with the Chicago Symphony. When I started out as a public defender, um, I knew that the job was really stressful and I needed a creative outlet. And I love classical music, and a friend was like, "Oh, they started this new young professionals group." So I joined it. It was called the Overture Council. It's still around, and I'm still involved. I love them. And I joined, and it became a huge part of my life. Like, I started to do, like, host events and, you know, just create conversations and, pre-concert talks of, like, what you were gonna hear that night, and then this all developed into an event I created called Soundpost. And Soundpost is an exploration of sound music and audio technology, and it was a pre-concert event that brought in people like Lady Gaga's songwriter to talk about Pro Tools, like composition in the age of Pro Tools, or video game nonlinear music composition. So you're bringing in these very different communities to do this thing over here, and then we gave, like, a kind of, impulse purchase price of, like, if you bought a ticket to the event, which is 20 bucks, you could get a ticket to the concert afterwards for $15, any seat in the house.
Oh,
So it was that mentality of, like, "Well, you're already here.
yeah.
Like, why don't you see a show?"
That
And it was
really.
wildly successful, and it's still actually going on today. It's
And this is
totally transformed.
you created this event.
With Jessica Erickson, who was at the CSO at the time. Like, we got this opportunity, and the CSO said, "We'll give you a budget, but you have to fill the seats." And so I went out and did a bunch of market research, and this is where, like, I started to realize, "Oh, I have an interest in technology." Like, I'm super fascinated, and I would sit down with these people at, like, 2112 or Fort Knox Studios, or I would go to, like, startup events, and I was looking for speakers, but I would sit with these founders for, like, 2, 3 hours, and we would just, like I would just, like, be so fascinated with their journeys. And so, as a result of this, I was looking for, like, one of the people on my team had come up with an idea for walkout music in baseball players. Like, when a baseball
Mhm.
player comes out, there's always we thought maybe there's some sort of psychological component to the song they pick. So I asked my brother, I said, "Do you know of any baseball players, maybe Sox or Cubs or whatever?" He's, like, super into sports. And he goes, "No, but my friend Andrew does, I think, and he's a wealth advisor at William Blair, which is an investment bank downtown." So I
Mhm.
meet with him. I have his pitch deck. I pitched him, and, he stops me in the middle of a conversation. He goes, I don't know if I can swear, "What the fuck you're talking about?" But
Swear away. I'm surprised I haven't
he goes
let the fuck word go multiple times,
right.
sir.
He's like, "I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but here's my card. I want you to come work for me." And I was in the office at the PDs for, at this point, 9 years, and I was desperate to leave, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And 3 months later, I quit my job, I quit the law, and I became a wealth advisor at an investment bank. And it was the wildest thing. I never had taken an economics course or a finance course, like, nothing, nothing.
That's so
And
wild.
it's so wild. And so I'm going from, like, representing the poorest of the poor to the richest of the rich. I walk in and I'm thinking, "This is my new life. This is my new profession." And kind of bringing it back to you, like, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I joined in March of 2019. Less than a year later, the pandemic hit. I couldn't go out and meet people. Therefore, that job was not really an option. And now again, here I was like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" And I thought at the time that that was like a failure. But what I've in retrospect, of course, right, seeing with 2020, it's almost as if this journey was meant to be, because every step along the way, that job taught me finance and economics. It taught me investments. It taught me how to read. And now I'm an avid reader of the Financial Times, right? Like, what you need to understand about the markets, how they work together, where trends are, how to invest at the right time, when to identify, like, when we're about to go through a trough, right? And that
Yeah.
leads me to be able to say to a startup, like, "You need to stretch your money a little longer because we're gonna go through rough times coming up." So all of that led to this kind of, and it also led to my introduction to digital assets, which is why I ended up
Mhm.
here. So it's like the skills are one aspect, but I think we've come to a place in our careers where we don't we're not just, you know, a thing that wakes up and has to just work and grind. We can also find things that speak to us as human beings, right? And I
Oh,
think that all of that is a discovery.
I mean, I definitely agree with that 100%. I feel like our generation has sort of snapped out of this whole wake up, work all day, Monday through Friday, 80-hour work week, you know, for 40, 50 years and then retire. And then you have what, 5, 10, maybe 15 years to sort of see the world, do your thing. Nah, I don't want to be doing that at 70. I want to be doing it at like 35. I want to take my kids to Paris, you know? Um,
100%.
yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't, I find more value in creating, I think, than I do just going into a classroom and teaching. I mean, that's still creating, but this is more fulfilling, in my opinion. And I
Well
also get to be at home with my kids. So
well, exactly, our priorities change,
yeah, yeah.
right? And you talk about traveling, you talk about, like, the world doesn't have to be grind, 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 and then die.
Yep.
And I think we are starting and technology is a huge part of this. The fact that we're even having this conversation when you're in your house and I'm in mine, and I can see your face, right? All of those things made us think differently about how we work. And now some of that pendulum, I think, is swinging back a touch in a
Mhm.
sense that I do think there is something that we lose in the digital. There
Oh, yeah.
just isn't, it's not the same. And it goes, I mean, our conversation feels like it's all over the place, but it's really not because, like, it when we talk about what it is that gets lost in the digital, it's the soul, it's the energy, it's the fact that when I'm in a room with you, I can feel who you are as a person, and you can feel and get sense of the information I'm conveying through things like body language or like, the way I shift as a person, that tells you things that we just can't pick up.
Or, I mean, our body language with, say, a child in the room, how they react, or I saw your cute dog walking around, just like,
Yeah,
I wonder if they would bark at me if they saw me, or if they would be
right,
totally chill, and that, like, that would inf that is that what that does is inform you about me through something, through another vessel that you love and trust, right?
right.
So,
And I think that our generation is really we're I'm not sure how old you are, but, I'm 42, and
I'm
we
38,
are
so
okay, so we're the generation that I think the last in human history that remembers the world pre-internet.
no, that's what we are. I mean, I still
Yeah.
remember the Dewey Decimal System and, like, card
God,
cataloging
yes.
and all that. I
I
mean,
kind of want to Dewey Decimal System my library, but
that would I mean, like, I so I just moved into my house about 6 months ago, and my office has been sort of the last thing that I took care of, and it's getting put together now, but, like, there are literally stacks of books here because I don't have enough bookshelves yet, which what a problem to have, you know?
oh, it's amazing. I mean, I think we're also recognizing this Gen Z, and the Gen Alphas are really leaning into the nostalgia, which makes me feel real fucking old. That, like, this is now cool again. Some of the things we wore
Like
and,
what was it? The low-waisted or low-rise bootcut
low-rise
jeans.
jeans.
I
Yeah.
remember those. I saw some dude wearing puka beads the other day when I was in my Kroger, and I was just like,
No.
"Shit off."
No.
How was that even cool? I remember mine, and I've seen pictures of me in it, and it did not age well. So,
Well, and I think so much of that is a recognition that, first of all, everything is cyclical, right?
yeah.
And along that journey, we as workers, as employees, as individuals who go out and earn money, we are an amalgamation of those experiences. And now that those things are coming back into fashion, the in person, we are the people who actually are really great at it. We look at this I look at some of my associates at the law firm. They graduated law school after 3 years of almost entirely Zoom-based education, and they are a very different lawyer than the person that we were when we graduated because we had entirely in person, and I remember being in school, my undergrad, I was telling one of my associates this the other day. Um, I bought a laptop. I was one of the only kids who bought a laptop, and I saved all summer, and it was the lightest laptop you could buy at the time, and this was 2002. It was 8 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
and I paid $1,800 for it
Was
in
it a Mac or a PC?
2002. It was a PC. It was
Dell?
God, it was not a Dell. God, what was it? I think it was a Sony.
Yeah, that tracks. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? And it was like they made the lightest laptops, but they were super expensive. And I kept thinking, like, this is great. I'll take my laptop to class and I'll be able to take notes. Well, the battery life on it was like less than an hour. And
Yeah,
there were no
yeah.
outlets because nobody took laptops to class. And there was no internet at the University of Illinois, or like wireless. There was internet, but it was Ethernet cable. So
Yeah.
you had to plug your computer into the wall. This is totally mind blowing to these kids.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember because I used to be an editor with McGraw-Hill, um, and some of the younger editors, because I was brought in, after I was teaching, so these guys, they were young, but they had about the same amount of experience I did. Everything they did was on their computers. I still was taking paper and pencil notes, and, like, some people were like, "How why?" Just like, I'm faster this way, man." Like, I retain it better.
The kids are back into it.
That you know what? That is
Note
true.
taking is like a thing now. And you know
I'm
what else is back? Typewriters. I actually, for Christmas, asked my parents for a typewriter.
I'm
And,
I want one too. I want one too. But
right?
but
Like,
not like not the electric ones. I want
oh, a
the
hammer.
stingers. Yeah.
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 Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is really just getting back to the experience of like disintermediating our living
Yeah.
that these young people are starting to crave because it actually is important. And I think that's where we, as people who are going through these career transformations, we have a real value add
Yeah.
that we don't fully understand yet. And with the boomers, they're going to be dying. And these positions are going to open up and we're going to start filling these leadership positions. And we have to think about what those skills are that we want to highlight, we want to really kind of
Mhm.
like represent. And I think so many of us who have gone through a career transition like yours and mine are going to be immensely valuable because we are the translators of both of those spaces. We speak both those languages.
Damn. The original title was gonna be Where We're Going, We Don't Need Roads, but that may be the new title, Erica. That was
Well,
fun.
I mean, but it's the truth. Like,
No,
I think about
absolutely.
this often that, you know, we, I don't think realize it's such a privilege when I study technology, and I think often, so I have this really incredible volume of books called The History of Technology, and it's from Oxford Publishing.
Okay.
It's started out with 5 volumes. It is now extended to 8, and they keep issuing new volumes every like 20 years or so. And so, I mean, it starts with prehistoric times and language as a tool, as a technology. It's incredible. There was a I'm sorry, gallery bookstore here in Chicago closed, and um, they had like a last weekend sale, and it was
Mhm.
one of my favorite and first bookstores that I ever went to when I moved downtown. And so I stood in line. I'm not kidding, for 4 hours, and waited for my opportunity to get in. And I came home with an obscene amount of books, and
I don't know if
I
that's a
could
thing.
it's not, it's not. And on the top shelf was this, like, history of technology, and I said, I got so lucky. I was like, "How much do you want for those?" He goes, "I don't know how much you wanna buy them for," and I said, $20. He was like, "Okay." And
Uh,
they were listed for 250, and so I got very lucky.
yeah.
But the history of technology, I study this a lot because I'm like, when you're building regulatory frameworks, governance frameworks for your companies where those don't exist, you have to look at other times in history that were analogous to this, where, we could say the creation or release of ChatGPT in 2022 was the printing press.
Yeah.
That is how
I
paradigm
mean,
shifting it is.
that's a
And we right? And like we as human beings, we don't always recognize that that is a moment in history that we are currently living through because it sort of happens in slow motion. Like we
I
started
mean,
to play with it.
Gutenberg recognized what he like, the impact his
Yeah,
machine was gonna have in the moment. Like,
of course.
I'm sure he was just thinking about, "Hey, look at all these blocks I can move. This is great." Like, and how many itches that scratches for people with ADHD or
Oh,
ADHD.
100%.
I mean, like, yeah,
Yeah,
we add the extra D just for
100%.
fun.
Just for fun. Oh god, there's a lot I could do with that. But, no, but I mean, when you study this, it is really, my anxiety and neuroses become calmer because
Yeah,
I can look at that and I can say, "This is not the first time. It will not be the last time. We have navigated these waters before,
yeah.
and we've done so in really, like, spectacular fashion." We as human beings are incredible creatures, and we always adapt. Now, the difference between this and previous, technological innovations is that this is happening so quickly. Like,
That's something
you
I was
know
gonna ask.
yeah, the printing press took hundreds of years.
Hundreds of
So
years.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, there was
so
even before the printing press, there was still the static type that was invented in China, you know,
right.
um, which came over on the Silk Road, but, like, then, movable type, that was decades to 100 or to maybe hundreds of years. This is happening in a span of months, literally, if we can think about it. I mean, like, where how fast did ChatGPT take off from its initial launch in 2022?
It was explosive,
Exactly.
like, absolutely explosive. Is there a hand up? Was that your hand?
Did my
I was like, "Do we have questions?"
the AI and thought I was raising my hand, so
God, no, that's yeah, we'll get to that.
okay.
Um, but yeah, no, it was explosive in 2022. I mean, and we talk about it at my firm a lot because, we're a very AI forward firm. We
Yeah.
have a legal engineer on staff, and, he is a lawyer by training, but also codes, and he's actually creating proprietary AI, like, tools for us. And it's really fascinating because I d I think I would not have been able to make this transition to the degree of success that I've had
Mhm.
without AI. I'm certain of it because we're a small firm. And so there was no one to really be able to spend every moment of every day explaining corporate law to me. I could Google search it, but ChatGPT, you can actually have a conversation with it. And there are moments where I have an issue or a question that comes up with my clients and I go to ChatGPT. And of course I verify because I have to. Like as a
Right.
lawyer, I am the end like point to that. I have to stand by my answers. But ChatGPT actually makes that very easy. They have links and I have specific structures for my conversations with ChatGPT. We actually are onboarding an enterprise account with Perplexity that actually allows for all of the elevated privacy and confidentiality concerns. Because when I have conversations with ChatGPT, I can obviously never mention my clients, never mention anything
Yeah.
that's private or confidential, no trade secrets, nothing like that. So it's usually more of just like the structural questions.
Right,
But
right.
with an enterprise AI, this expands the opportunity for us to like actually have a conversation in a real manner as if this is another associate at the firm or partner, you know, who knows all law of all time and like can explain any concept in an instant to me. Like that's just it's mind blowing the tool that this thing
Well,
is. And it's completely transforming our work as a tool. Right? And so I think what we're going to see is there's several different phases of learning what this tool is and will be for us. And again, going through these tech books that I have, these history of technology books, it's really amazing because the way the books are structured, it will take it's timeline based, but each chapter focuses on things like the locomotive, for example. And then it starts at the beginning of what was the first thing. And then it will say, okay, and when they realized, it was really bumpy or whatnot, then they
mhm.
start talking about how the axles work and that as a technological innovation. So you really see how we as human beings like looked at this thing, we create a thing, and there's the big boom, right? The locomotive.
Yeah,
Okay, well now we need tracks.
Mhm.
And now we need, like, to make it comfortable,
Yep.
and then we gotta make it fast. And these iterations upon iterations upon iterations, that's what we're gonna see with AI. Is like, we're not even there yet. We're in its infancy.
Do you think, and again, this wasn't on the questionnaire, so we just strike it. Um, do you think that we will see AI reach adulthood in our lifetimes, or is this like just because of the pace in which it's moving, right? Um, or are we just gonna basically see maybe we could out of college and get it out of the house, you know?
Um, I don't know, because you ask one company and they say, "We're gonna have AGI in the next 2 years." And then you ask another company and they say, "We're 25 years away from AGI."
Interesting.
Right? And
That's really interesting.
yeah, there's and when you understand a little bit more about startup culture, there is, there's always a little bit of, like, fake it till you make it that I'm always quite skeptical of,
Mm,
that, like, you have to build a vision, and then you have to sell that vision, and then you have to make that vision come true, and I think some people don't know where to draw the line, so a lot of what I tend to gravitate towards people who are a bit more reasonable, and that they're not overselling and underdelivering, because I just think that that leads to things like Theranos or, Sam
yeah,
Bankman-Fried and FTX, right? So, I tend to stay away from, like, being overly ambitious. Not no, that's not the right word. Overly, like, overselling and underdelivering is the best way to phrase that.
absolutely. Yeah.
So I
No,
think there's anybody who says things like, "Oh, we're 2 years away," or, like, from AJ. I don't believe that. I
okay.
just don't. Like, and the research doesn't support it. So I do think what we're gonna find is what we use AI for now is not what it's gonna feel and look like in 15 years.
Okay.
So it's
That's
whether it's yeah, whether it's an adult, I don't know, but w it as a tool will go through the same transformation that, like, email went through.
okay.
Where, like, when we first started using email, I remember my first email address was an intra email at my high school, and it was, like, Erika.Knierim at, like, DuPage.Westmont.K through 12.com or
Yep.
some, like, ridiculous thing, and it
Yep.
was only available within the school system, and then we were thinking like, "Well, what is this thing? What do I write with it?" Right? Like, "What do I do with it?" And now nobody thinks about emails.
No.
It's just a tool. Like, it's a thing that we don't really worry, about it too much. We think Gmail is a secure system, and they're not going to, like, when we send stuff, it's gonna be fine. Now, that's a whole other conversation about whether that's true or
Right.
not, but
Yeah, yeah.
right? But,
Well,
like,
you're
I
I'm
think
definitely
that's what
gonna
we're gonna do.
have to ask you back for another one of these. But yeah,
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about.
absolutely. No, I think I think you're absolutely I just remember me as an angsty teenager smoking cigarettes, when I, was on my break from Blockbuster, mad at the world.
Wait, you worked at Blockbuster?
Hell yeah, I worked at a Blockbuster.
Love that.
Yeah.
Do you
I
think they're
actually
gonna make a comeback?
dude, if they do, I honestly, I'd go work for them, or I'd consider going and working for them. I would consider going and working for them.
Well, it would be like a novelty. It'll be like vinyl.
Oh, dude, I mean, so I have the thing that I have more of than anything physically is DVDs and, uh, Blu-rays and all that stuff. So, there was part of me that was just like, "Well, if what if I made a video store and people could rent my stuff?" And then I was just like, "Well, wait, I don't wanna have people break my stuff." So, but yeah, I worked at a Blockbuster in high school, in college. Um, yeah,
It's incredible.
thank you.
I mean, Blockbuster, it's a vibe.
Yup, yup. Well, so speaking of entertainment, what is you can you talk about, or what is your take on the current streaming wars going on between Netflix and Paramount?
Yeah, it's super interesting. in that, like, this really goes to the conversation we've been having about startups. When Netflix hit the scene,
Hmm.
it completely disrupted Blockbuster,
Exactly. Well, and I
and
believe that
they
didn't Netflix try to partner with Blockbuster?
well, of course, because Netflix sort of was a spinoff of Redbox, wasn't it?
It
Right?
was.
Where you, like, received a DVD
Yeah.
and, like, like the internet, Flix, and, like, I think you went online and you, like, queued up some DVDs and they, like,
It's
sent them to you.
Yep. I
So
was an
then
early adopter of Netflix, actually. It was a gift from, my father-in-law, actually. Well, he wasn't my father-in-law then, but, he was my girlfriend's dad. But yeah,
yeah, I mean, that's a great gift
it was,
because
and, like, he
it wasn't cheap, I don't think,
um,
or was it? I don't
I
even
don't
remember.
I think you know what? I remember the original, like, getting the DVD plan, you could have, like, 1 DVD up to, like, 5 DVDs, and the 5 DVDs, that
That's
was,
right.
like I don't remember how much a month, but it was, like, it was over 50. And I remember I had, like, the one of the starter packages, the 1 or 2 out at a time. So, and that was, like, maybe 15 bucks. But then when they started streaming, they dropped their price, and now, I mean
Well, let's talk about the price because, like, that's what I find hilarious about this. All of this transformation and disruption. You know why people started to go to Netflix?
we
Because
can
cable
watch
was like 150 bucks and there was nothing on TV, and it had all
and
these
commercials.
commercials.
Yeah,
Yeah, and now here we are. I have 6 different streaming platforms that are about 150 total. There's nothing on, and now we're back to commercials. I'm like, "Wait, I'm already paying you, Hulu. Why are you making me see a commercial? You promised me I
absolutely.
wouldn't."
Yeah, nope.
So, honestly, it's all just cable.
Yeah.
We're back to square one.
Hmm, interesting. I think this is a
So
conversation for another time, but, like, does the I mean, like, would this be something like we're streaming has failed?
no,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
just
it can, but
again, when we talk about the cycles of technology, at the end of the day, the reason that commercials existed within, like, cable internet or cable television was to pay for the entertainment that you were watching.
yeah,
And the, like, value structures of streaming was a race to the bottom. You could not provide all of that entertainment when you were charging people 9 bucks a month.
yeah,
That just doesn't work, and that's why commercialization, I'm sorry, the commercials ended up being a revenue stream. That's why Google has ads, right? Like, all of this is about advertising. It's about you as the product.
yep,
Now there's the conversation with, ChatGPT, with the internet, or with AI, where right now you pay a subscription and you get data. But and again, I think this might be a much deeper conversation for another day because I think about this often, that Google works the way that it does because they've created a priority search function that prioritizes the most validated and trusted uh, information just below the advertising ads, right? But we all know those are
right,
ads. So we go down to, like, the first ranked piece, and we have been trained that that is the most trusted source typically. And we have a way of searching through Google that allows us to figure out, what we know in our experience in our generation's understanding, what's the first, like, first source, a primary source versus the secondary source. Like, Google has reinvented that.
yes,
ChatGPT, without the visibility, it's just talking to us. And so behind the scenes is, like, who is feeding that data? Who is actually prioritizing it? Right now, it's free, allegedly free from ads, but I think that will only last so long. I mean, when you hear about the amount of money that these AI companies are like raising,
mhm,
they can only continue to charge us what we're charging us for the next few years. And they know it. Like, I saw a bit, like, a short clip of the CEO of ChatGPT, um, or of OpenAI, talking about how she was sitting next to an attorney who was using, ChatGPT to draft some things. And she said, we understand the value that this brings to that lawyer. And she said, I asked him, if you were to use a intern or a law clerk or like a first year associate to do the research that you did on ChatGPT, how much value would you assign to that? And he said, easily $5,000. And she said, we
Whoa.
understand that that is the amount of money that we are saving you. So we're onboarding you to the system. We're teaching you how to use it. And don't worry, the value will sort itself out later.
Yeah.
And so there's a question of, this idea of like how much can they outsource to ads and what those ads bring in from a revenue perspective to offset the subscription costs to make it actually a viable ecosystem. That's the same thing with streaming. Like ads are always going to be in the picture. That was always
Yeah.
going to be a part of the plan. It's just an
Yeah.
arc. And now a new disruption will come along. Like YouTube, I think, is actually the next thing. Like short video, TikTok, YouTube, constant streaming. Like kids don't even watch streaming services typically. They're on YouTube.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm trying to keep my kid or well, my daughters are young, so they don't really know how to use they normally just wanna watch, like, Fortnite or not Fortnite, what's the other Minecraft videos,
Yeah.
which that's relatively harmless, so.
But still wild that
I
that's a
know,
thing.
I know. I mean, but, my daughters will still watch, like they'll watch K-pop Demon Hunters or, right now, How the Grinch Stole Christmas is constantly being requested. So
Wait, really? Like the old one?
oh, yeah, the original one.
I love that one.
Well, but we
The little
also
dog with, like, the branch. It's my
but
favorite.
we it does get mixed with the new Benedict Cumberbatch one, so, it's a dice toss which one we're gonna get, but
But not the Jim Carrey one?
thankfully, they haven't discovered that one yet.
Okay, I won't tell tell 'em.
Is that your favorite?
No, mine's the cartoon, like the
Okay, yeah,
original.
mine too.
Yeah.
No, I thought the Jim Carrey one was, legitimately terrifying when I saw it in theaters.
Oh, 100%. Not a fan.
Yeah, no.
Um, yeah, no, I mean, it's not like we were watching super elevated stuff when we were kids. It was like Roadrunner and, like, Warner Brothers, and my
The
brother's
Christmas
my older brother was
Carol.
super into, like, Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead.
Oh, yeah. I grew up watching that. Absolutely.
Well, whenever I don't know if you've discovered this, but, like, one of my friends brought up Skibbity Toilet to me. Do you know this thing? It is a sensation. You should watch it. It's terrifying. Like, I'm not a fan, but I read an article about how Skibbity Toilet was, like, the end of, civilization, and I started to laugh because I'm like, "That's what they said about Beavis and Butthead and Ren and Stimpy," and if you go back and watch some of those Ren and Stimpy, like, I remember the song, "Don't piss on the
The
electric
electric
fence."
fan.
Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So, we're fine. Like,
Yeah.
the kids are fine.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Well, so before we go oh, darn, I should did the welp, but I didn't.
Well,
Well, before we go, I do wanna just ask, a couple more questions, particularly, where can people find you? Do you have anything that you would like to promote before you wrap up, especially your work with the symphony and with we didn't even get a chance to talk about Defy Ventures, really. Maybe that's a next
yeah.
time thing.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, you can Google me. Usually, like, the Founders Law stuff comes up. Yeah, if there's ever any questions or you wanna talk all things AI, blockchain, quantum computing, happy to, like, talk to you. Um, but yeah, LinkedIn, just look up Erika Knierim, Founders Law. And in terms of, like, promoting something coming up, I have an event series that I created called Tech Day Chicago, and I work with a team, and what we do is create conversations at the intersection of art and technology. And so our most recent event happened at the end of October, and it was at Hyde Park Labs, where the new quantum computing hub is going to be. And it was called Art and Interpretability in the Age of Quantum Computing. And we brought together artists who were quantum physicists creating at that intersection. We brought, design. individuals who built the new Hyde Park Labs to talk about how to build for quantum computing, or how to design for quantum computing. We had the executive director of the Smart Museum talking about, the history of technology and contemporary art and how they've kind of grown up together. I'm sorry, quantum physics over the last 100 years. So it was a really wonderful day. So we have those twice. We host those twice a year. So I'll send you some information on our upcoming event, and I think we're going to focus on robotics, which I'm super excited about.
Ooh, very fun.
Yeah.
And then do you have a date for that event just so we can put it out there right now?
We don't yet,
Okay.
because we just finished the last one, and it always takes you know how it goes, like,
Oh,
it always takes, like, a couple weeks to just, "Okay, that's done now."
breathe.
Then we plan for the next one.
Yeah, breathe again, because the actual event, you're holding your breath the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be in the spring.
Knierim, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today on Hoosier Homies.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I had a great conversation, I look forward to having another one soon.
I count on it. It's gonna happen. All right, take care.
Bye.
Thanks again for watching Hoosier Homies. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Hoosier Homies is directed, created, and written by Benjamin C. Lawson. Edited by Nico Anas. Special thanks to Erika Knierim, attorney at Founders Law.